Episode 1 of the Rice Pudding Project. We're starting off at a low. So this one literally only way is up from here. Hi Neel, how are you? Please introduce yourself.
I was fine. My name is Neel Kumar. I'm a film director, and I've been in Dubai for about 30 years, off and on.
That's it? Just off and on?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. Where were you off and where were you on? No, just where were you
I grew up here, Colombo and Toronto. So
Why film directing?
by accident, actually.
So one of the hardest jobs there is in the world, you just accidentally
Yeah,
became-
I accidentally fell into it. Yeah. I always loved writing. I'd been writing stories ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. My grandfather was a writer, so I started copying him because I thought what he was doing was cool.
Mhm.
And so I was introduced to good stories from when I was very young. And later on, I used to work at a radio station when I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
And I wrote their radio spots, and I was a DJ on air. And I would do voiceovers and stuff like that. And I learned audio editing. And then from audio editing, it's very similar sort of structure to film editing.
Okay.
So when in college I saw Final Cut and everything made sense because I was used to that nonlinear editing format. And then I was like, oh, this seems easy. I can just shoot some stuff and cut it together. And that's how it started. And then I realized it's impossibly hard.
A little bit hard, yeah.
Yeah, but the camera was like the last piece of the puzzle for me. I think I only really got a camera when I was 25. Something like that.
Let's go back because I know there was a little bit in between. You didn't just go from that to the directing.
Yeah.
You said you wrote spots for radio. You went into advertising.
Oh yeah. So this is when I was in high school. We used to write our own radio ads in house at the station. But then when I came to Dubai, I didn't want to go to university, but my parents insisted, and I had to study something. So the only thing I could think of was I enjoyed radio, so I went to study mass communication, studied advertising, and then I got into a great advertising agency here, Young and Rubicam, where I believe you've been.
One of the best places. They hire the best people.
Sure, and me. But yeah, advertising was like, especially Young and Rubicam at that time was like idea boot camp. You know, they really kicked your ass, if I'm allowed to say that. And
we'll say worse. So
yeah,
that's fine.
well, you've been there, and you know what advertising is like here. It was kind of an era, especially when Dubai was coming up in the international advertising circuit, and people were starting to take notice, and brands were starting to do interesting things. Yeah. And so I saw a lot of opportunity there. And then all these other things had come into. I was working as a copywriter, and all these other things had slowly come into play. My work with audio, so I would do like spec radio spots for the agency. I loved photography. And the Canon 5D came out 2008, 9, 5D Mark II, and started shooting video. And then I started doing video clips for the ad agency.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, and I moved agencies, and then I realized one day that the agencies were charging more for my clips than I was getting paid. So I was like, you know what?
I remember when you started doing those, I'm calling behind the scenes videos at first. And
I was at the bottom of the call sheet.
Yeah, because I wanted to be a director, and I went the route where they told me that you need to become a first AD, and then from a first AD you work your way up and work your way up and work your way up, and and 30 years later you're still trying to work your way up. And then they go from production company come to agency, and then agencies you'll get a chance and all that stuff. And then I saw you take a complete different leap of faith, different direction by doing behind the scenes. And I was like, really? He's just like doing making ofs and behind the scenes and on set when he's not actually directing. And then I saw how that actually transitioned to it, and I was a little bit jealous at first.
Well, I mean, I went from
very
overnight. There's nothing to be jealous about, but overnight I went from like the top of the call sheet, in the creative department, to the bottom of the call sheet, if I was even on the call sheet at all, and but I got to see a lot of different directors work.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What did you learn from that? Because you would have exposed a lot of things.
I don't know if I consciously learned anything. I think I just quietly absorbed things. I understood the way that directors talk to actors and talk to cast. That's very important for me. And there were a couple of good directors that I liked their energy on set. I found that was really important. And I noticed, being at the bottom of the call sheet, you see the energy from the director kind of trickle down.
Yeah.
If you have a director who's
an asshole,
not in control of their emotions, or panics, that's like blood in water, and instantly, everyone's freaking out. The catering guy is freaking out.
It's like napalm.
100%. So I learned that really, really early on, and I think that's a lesson I wouldn't have learned unless I was, that far away from an HOD or.
Talking of directors, who inspires you? I know a couple
as a director.
Yeah, as a director, who'd you either would appreciate their work?
He didn't direct my favorite movie, but Christopher Nolan, I think, was probably my favorite director.
Now or of all?
I would say, in recent memory, just talking about directors since I was a kid.
Okay.
I think nobody's really managed to fuse entertainment, like blockbuster entertainment, with very cerebral storytelling and very layered storytelling. And I think no one does it quite like him. Denis Villeneuve comes very close. Like, he's, I think, a close second to me, for me, rather. He's a brilliant director as well.
It's funny because you say Christopher Nolan, and he had an orthodox entry into filmmaking.
Yeah, he didn't get
videos,
accepted.
Right?
He didn't get accepted in film
he's
school.
not good enough for film school, like Spielberg. But then
like the best directors weren't good enough for film school.
Thank you. I didn't go to film school.
Yeah.
Who inspired you as a writer when you were? Which writers as a kid?
My grandfather, because usually a writer is a very abstract concept for a reader, right? Because you never get to see them or interact with them. But watching my grandfather write I think it was a privilege.
What's the best piece of advice you've had in professional advice?
It was when I set up my production company. I left a great job at Saatchi. I was doing well. I was still pretty young. I was 24, but I wanted to set up on my own.
You left at 24?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have been terrified to do it now, but I'm glad I did it when I did it. And I was still terrified then. And I told my uncle that. He's the only businessman in my family. And he said to me, jump and learn to fly while you're falling. Okay. And he didn't say much more than that, but everything kind of made sense, like we get shoots and we're like, well, how you look at the brief and you're like, I love what I can do with this, but I also don't know how exactly I'm going to get there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, start, hire the right people, talk to the creative department, get in your own head, see what you like about the project, and then take it from there, rather than like, oh, I don't have all the answers yet, I can't do this shoot, or this shoot's not for me, or this project's not for me, So yeah, if the challenge is compelling, is I guess what he was saying, just take it on and figure it out as you go.
So along the way, you must have had some interesting experiences. What was the most, one or two, or just the most memorable experience you had?
The most memorable experiences were probably, for better and for worse, when I was shooting my feature film.
Do you want to name the feature film? Or just want us to put it in the credits?
Oh, we do plugs. It's called Beneath the Sea of Lights. Yeah. I was shooting it here in Dubai. And we had some famous actors in there. We had Barkhad Abdi, we had Jim Sarb. But there was one actor that I worked with. His name's Ashish Kapoor. He had a smaller role in the film, but pretty important. And I remember sitting in the trailer with him the day we were shooting his scenes. And we had not much time. I mean, I say, like, making that movie for me was like trying to build a burning house. Everything was ablaze, and you're just trying to come up with some semblance of structure in that. Yeah. And I didn't have much time for Ashish, unfortunately. So I was, I remember I walked into his trailer. I apologized profusely that we hadn't got to speak properly yet. And I had about half an hour with him to talk about his character. And I never tell actors, say the line like this or say the line like that. I talk to them about their character. And then I hand that over to them.
Okay.
And the conversation that he and I had, I can't recall the words that were used on either side, but I remember the way it made me feel. I just felt like I was home, for the first time. I was like, because there's so much doubt in this industry and in what we do, right? Self-doubt, usually. And then I was like, I'm exactly where I need to be. And it was nothing to do with me. It was the conversation I was having with another actor. I think that conversation between an actor and a director, that exchange, was, I don't know, it just felt very, I can't think of a better word right now, but it felt very pure. And what I got back from him was probably way more than I gave him. And I realized that when you have two people that are completely disconnected, come from completely different backgrounds, but are united by trying to find the truth of whatever this character is, or this scene is, or this story is, it's so interesting what everybody brings to the table, And I've had similar conversations with not just actors, but heads of department or people from lighting, from camera department, with cinematographers as well. But that conversation kind of stuck out for me for some reason. I think it was one of the nicest moments I had on set, even though we weren't technically on set. And everything.
How big of a role did he have in your film? Like,
Sorry?
how many scenes was he in the film?
Oh, it was about 4. He kind of came in and stole the scene very quietly, And all the stuff that I had discussed with him, it was all there in the eyes, and I saw it and I felt it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and he's looking at me like, do you want me to do anything differently?
Oh, just perfect.
We move on. Yeah, we move on. When you get the take, you get the take.
So you said that you had to go to university and choose something.
Yeah.
All right. And you chose mass communications.
Begrudgingly, yeah.
All right. So how do you think your family reacted to that? Because you've not gone the traditional route, right? Because your father's in finance, right? Yeah. So would they want you to go more in a traditional, let's say, lawyer, doctor, engineer, the cliche things? And how did they react to you going into a creative, less, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just less stable, let's be honest. It's not, being a freelance director is not the most stable, and although it sounds fantastic, it's, you don't have a steady income, you don't have insurance, you don't have a pension plan. How did your dad react to that?
Speak for yourself. I have all of those things. How did they react? It was very gradual. There was never a vocation given to me, like be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Oh, okay. But there was, why did you get 98% on the exam? Where's the other 2%? So there's a lot of that.
Okay. And what was your answer?
I didn't have one. I still don't have one. But I came from a very academic family. My grandfather's a PhD.
The writer?
Yeah. His wife was a PhD, his first wife. My dad is a CFA. My mom's got a master's degree. I'm still the least educated person in my family. And I think at that stage, my folks were kind of figuring out, as I was figuring out, that I wasn't really interested in academics. I really couldn't care less. I was good at it, and that's what I think was difficult for them. I was great in school. I was way more interested in stories. I was way more interested in watching movies, making music, writing songs, writing anything really. I love to write.
And you didn't feel the pressure to have to conform to get a higher education, to get a master's, to
I did. I did feel the pressure, and I just, at one point, I remember I cracked, and I told myself, I'm just gonna start being who I am. And I think I was 15 or 16, something like that. I'd studied. I mean, it's a long, boring story, but I had studied really, really hard for a math exam. I hated it. So I did the 2-year course in 1 year. And then the next year, instead of getting a free period, my mom was like, no, you have to do the advanced math course, which was optional. And I was made to study even harder for that. Now, the first year I got an A, which is fine. But the second year, I really, really studied my ass off, and I got a D. And I was like, and I'm so glad I did. I was in tears. Because I felt completely idiotic, right? But I was like, if you can put so much effort into something you hate and still fail,
yeah, this is what Jim Carrey said, right?
Yeah, and when I heard him say that,
About his
I was
father.
like, I couldn't articulate it as well as him because I was a 15-year-old
But
angry
it makes
kid.
sense.
But yeah, back then
Fail
I
at
was
doing
like,
something you love rather than fail at something that you hate.
100%. And
Because you're going to fail eventually.
yeah.
Talking of how things have changed and evolving, like how do you think your industry has changed over the years? And do you feel it's for the better or for the worse?
I think it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What, that is good or bad, or that has changed?
That it's changed. I think that doesn't matter. I think a lot of people, myself included, we get caught up with how things are changing and the latest this and the latest that.
Yeah,
and
the cameras and the
yeah,
lenses.
or AI, or I remember John Mayer gave a talk at Berkeley where he used to study, and they were like, "Excuse me, Mr. Mayer, with Spotify and streaming and Apple and all this stuff, like, how do you get your music out there?" And John Mayer looks at them and he's like, "It's really simple. Write a great song." I think he swore, and I won't, but that was it. He said, "Write a great effing song."
Yeah, because I agree with that. The quality is going to come, the content's going to
Yeah.
win over everything.
See, you might have to work harder than other people. You might have to work, your song might have to be 10 times as good as the one that's already on the radio. But your movie, you could make a movie for $100,000 with a shoestring budget and whatever cameras you can get your hands on. And that's a lot of money. 100 grand's a lot of money in the US for an independent film. And you can make a zero budget movie. But if people resonate with the story, that's it.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again. Like, look at El Mirachi.
There's so
Robert
many
Rodriguez,
examples.
that,
But it's really hard.
So there's nothing really you want to see in the future, in terms of changes or...
I'm not really interested in what's coming next. I've never been a finger on the pulse of society kind of guy. Some of my favorite stories were written hundreds of years ago.
Like?
The Odyssey, the Iliad, Homer. They're fundamentals of storytelling that I think will be around for millennia, and they've been around for millennia. To me, that's what interests me. And that's not really going to change. The way the stories are told will evolve, 100%. And when I find, okay, I'll give you an example. If I'm writing a movie now, set in ancient Egypt, if I get the budget for that today, and if I get the budget for that 20 years from today with all these technological changes, as long as even if my story stays the same, I'm not going to worry about the technological changes until I actually am at the cusp of making the movie.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So
it's when that moment arises, you'll deal with the obstacle.
Then I'll look at, okay, what's happened around me, rather than sitting there and focusing on it or waiting for something to happen or not happen. Or I'll go, okay, what's the movie I can make today, and what's the situation today? And budget dictates that very often. If I had $3 million to make a movie right now, I know which movie I'd make. But I don't have $3 million to make a movie. I might have a fifth of that. And I still know, okay, I can tell that story.
Make this movie instead.
Yeah.
What brings you the most happiness?
What sense? Like, what kind of happiness? Like fulfillment or just joy?
Okay.
Which one?
Both.
Both? Joy, stupid jokes. I love to laugh, honestly. It's as heavy as things get, life's tough. But I think being able to find humor in any situation.
Okay.
It just brings me so much joy. Fulfillment, I think I get the most fulfillment when I've made something. I'll give you the opposite of that. Sometimes 5-6 days go by and I find myself in a weird mood and I'm irritated and I'm snappy with people I love or I'm close to. And I don't know what's up. Yeah. And I realize, like, in the last few days, I haven't written a poem or a song, or I haven't put an edit together or thought of a concept for a film or written a page of a screenplay. I need to create something. And I think I feel the most fulfilled when I've made something that didn't exist before, even if it's just for me, it doesn't matter. but I like to be constantly gnawing on something.
But then doesn't that mean that you need to have constant inspiration?
No, I don't
How
think
do you
so.
write a book or write a song or write a poem like constantly, like, because like a lot of songs of the blues or whatever, they come from pain and sorrow and what have you. So do you need that to?
I was very fortunate. I was very lucky, but I grew up with a lot of guilt and there was a lot of depression and anxiety.
As a child?
Yeah, yeah. I was diagnosed from very, very young.
They diagnosed you with depression or anxiety?
Both. Anxiety came later, depression first.
How old were you?
First, ADD was noticed at like 9, and then 12, and then 17. I got diagnosed 4 times, just in case it was
12,
a phase.
17.
9, 12, 17, 21.
So you just they kept on saying he's got ADHD or ADD?
Well, I would keep going to specialists and shrinks and all this stuff and try to figure out. I tried medication. I tried all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
So, and I think from when I was very young, I had this constant weight. I knew I was adopted from a very young age, so I think there was a huge amount of fear of abandonment that was subconscious.
How old did you know? Sorry, so you were adopted. So how old did you know when you were adopted?
I really don't know, which is a good thing.
Your parents just told you?
Yeah, there wasn't a day that I remember, which means it was probably as young as they probably.
Well, like 4 or 5 years old. Like, hey, you're adopted.
Maybe younger.
Wow.
Maybe
okay.
younger. Yeah. Because if it was at 4 or 5, I would have remembered the day they told me.
Okay.
I don't. I just remember growing up with that.
Did you ever ask them why they told you? At that young age, that you should know. I'm not saying.
No. I think that's. I mean, personally, I think my folks did that absolutely right. Like, if I had adopted a kid, I would tell them from very young.
Okay.
Although, I mean, it's a huge shock otherwise, right? It's. I know people who have been told at different stages in life or later in life, and it didn't go well.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I guess, I mean, And then how'd that make you feel? So you said fear of abandonment.
Yeah, I grew up with fear of abandonment.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that till I was 32, 33.
That you had a fear of abandonment?
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea any of this was a problem for me. Because I was raised with like adoption being a very positive thing.
Which it is. It's a very good thing for people to do. Yeah.
But there's a grief that I think comes with it. That I think yes, it's a beautiful thing, but it also came from something potentially tragic. And I had always learned to embrace the beauty in it, but I never sat with the tragedy. I never processed that, right? So I was almost in denial of any kind of negative feelings that were associated. And so they kind of got pushed down. And I think when you try to suppress that, it bounces back up and maybe shows up in different ways. So I think because of this, that weight that I was telling you about that I grew up with, it caused me to see things in a very different light. And I was very introverted. I loved spending time on my own, inside my own head. And the kind of movies that I liked, the kind of music that I liked.
What kind of movies?
Dark.
Huh?
Dark. Like, I don't mean horror. I mean dark, just like heavy films.
Like, I mean, it's just a... Because I know you said The Heat was one of your
favorite.
Oh, yeah,
Heat's my favorite movie of all time. And it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Right? My favorite music. It's all got that sort of...
dark vibe.
Tinge. Yeah. And when I sing and when I play guitar, people are always like, oh, why do you play sad songs?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that's my thing. Even the kind of stories I tell, they have...
The fear of abandonment only came out... You only realized that when you were 32?
Yeah.
So it didn't really stop you from fulfilling or achieving anything because you started your own company when you were 24.
I did what I did without knowing I was being weighed down. Does that make sense? Yeah. I would have been a much more faster successful swimmer. No, I don't really care about success, but okay. I think I would have got to where I was going faster in life without that weight attached. But the things that made me, forced me to kind of stop and see and feel.
Such as?
I wanted to do things, but my motivation for them changed completely. And I think the motivation I had initially was a bit dark. It was a bit, being adopted from the situation I was adopted from, one of the poorest cities in the world. And it was the most famous orphanage in the world. It was Mother Teresa's home in Calcutta. Yeah. And coming out of that situation, I mean, I've been back there. And I've seen that room where all the babies are. And you realize, like...
How big is the room?
Not very different.
4 meters by 3 meters kind of thing?
No, I mean, the nursery where all the cots are is something like this. It's, 4 by 4 maybe. It's been a while. But I remember seeing all these cots and thinking back, like, what if, my folks picked me? What if the kid next to me was going to cure cancer? What if the kid, the cot down from me was going to do something else great? I need to...
But that's what you thought?
Oh, yeah.
That someone else could have done a better job?
Someone else may have done more with their life, right? Like, why did I get picked? Why me? And it's almost like survivor's guilt. Like, everyone on the plane's dead except you. You got out of there. And you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, one way of it could be survivor's joy.
I'm not saying it's... Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way I grew up was I have to prove to myself and to whoever, the world, that I was picked for a reason. And so I want to write a great story. I want to make a great movie. Motivation totally changed. Because my intention is pretty much the same. But my reason for doing it, or my motivation to do it, is not guilt anymore.
But how do you know that the person in the next cot wasn't picked and didn't do a great
Oh, for
job
sure.
also,
But like,
right?
this is a 7-year-old kid thinking, right?
Oh, you had these thoughts when you were 7?
I was like very familiar with the fact that age 3 or 4, that someone can give their child away. And not understanding the reasons for that. How can you? I still can't, right? But now I don't need to. Back then, the 3-year-old, 4-year-old me was like, but because you're forming your version of the world, right? Your understanding of the world, and you're learning logic, and so you're connecting dots. It's very disruptive. And then the other thing is, I used to go back to Calcutta very often. My mom would take me back to the orphanage every year.
To help and think.
Not to help, but just to go back. I don't really know why, but I think she was trying to keep me grounded.
Okay.
Not to forget those roots.
There's just nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But I remember going back to Calcutta, and I'm sitting in an air-conditioned car, which is a luxury over there. And, it's a very poor city, and people tap on the glass because they're begging for money. And I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, one of these could be my mom or my sister or my dad, and I have no idea. Yeah. I remember those thoughts very clearly.
When you were 7?
Younger than that. So the flip side of that was, from a very young age, I always wanted to help people. Always. Because I felt like someone gave me, or 2 people, gave me an opportunity that I would have never had. So I was always trying to give people, and I still think I do my best to give people opportunities, especially when I see someone trying to get a leg up. I'll do whatever I can to give them a boost. I learned that from very young too. So not all of this is dark.
Yeah.
But what I learned was, when you're looking at the world through this lens, there's no rose-colored spectacles, right? You're seeing the reality of life pretty young.
Yeah.
And I love that, because there was never this like day that I was jaded with reality. Like, I didn't go from rainbows and butterflies to something else. I went from, I think, a more realistic picture of the world from a very young age, where life's not fair, but life's also beautiful.
You want to help people, right?
Yeah.
You said you learned that as well, which is great. How many people
What
would be enough?
Oh, never.
Well, why though? Because 2 people gave 1 person opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? So if you just pass that on and do the same thing, and then you're helping one other person, isn't that enough? Like, 1 person, you help 1 person, and it's...
Now I do it because I can. It's not because I have to. I do it because I can, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
All the people I know that are close to me help other people, even complete strangers, And I think I value that in the kind of people I surround myself with. My family are very, very charitable. They're very generous with their time. And with whatever resources they have. I learned that from really young.
So would you say that's that thought process, of that mentality, that, say the cat on the chest and the guilt, and that was your biggest obstacle to get over in life, to be?
Oh, I'm still not over it.
Oh, you're not over
No,
it?
no. I love it.
You love what?
I love that. I love the depression. I love
You love the depression?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, it's because you like the music.
Oh, I would never give that to anybody.
You love the depression?
I love it. It's my voice. The only reason that
You need it?
Huh?
Do you need it?
Do I need it?
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. I don't know what life's like without it, and I don't want to be without it. Because
how? Like it's you mean so? Wait a second. Let's just to clarify. You're saying you like that. You like the depression. You want the depression because you like to be sad.
No.
Because that's what I think of when I think about depression.
No, I mean, it's semantics, but everybody gets sad. Everybody gets depressed at certain points. But having depression to me is a different thing. Okay,
because that's the way I'm thinking. Because I've felt it, and it's not something I would wish or want at all.
It's
on
like
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go through slumps.
Yeah.
Ups and downs, but even when you're on your ups, if you have depression, you're still carrying that with you. But if you don't look at it like an enemy or anything to fight, right? It depends how much control you have.
So is it more of a reminder for you?
If I didn't have it, I would not be interested in a single word I had to say as a writer. Because of the way I grew up, because of the way I was raised, because of whatever chemical imbalances I may or may not have in my head, because of the adoption, for better or for worse, I am what I am.
Yeah.
And if you take any of those elements away from me, I will not write the same way. I'll not be interested in the same things.
I'm not saying that you take away that you didn't have to go through it.
Yeah.
Because you are now, Neel today and Neel tomorrow is everything he's gone through the last 38 years. 100%. If you take anything away, it's like a butterfly effect. You don't have it, you're not going to have the same thing. Maybe you don't like whatever it is. But to still want and enjoy the depression is an interesting thing for me. I mean, that's your decision. That's your thought. That's all good. I just never assumed or never saw you as a depressed guy.
I don't. I mean,
in that sense.
That's
the thing.
I may have depression, but I'm not a depressed guy. I mean, you know me.
Yeah.
Anybody around me will say I'm a jester most of the time, right? I love to laugh.
Yeah.
This is gonna sound very funny, but I feel like the depression that I carry around, it's like it's my best friend.
Okay.
Now, when my life was difficult, was when the depression was in the driver's seat, right? Because then the depression is making the decisions for you, and the fear is making the decisions for you, right? When the depression's in the passenger seat, it's just a friend of yours who has a very different perspective on life. And it's interesting, and you may not agree with everything he or she says, but your life is richer for having that person around. That's how I see it.
Okay. Like, how do you control that? Because if for someone who's had depression, had dark thoughts, depressed thoughts, had a rough childhood, talking from experience, it's like two dragons, right? They're the yin and your yang. One can control the darkness, the light can take over, So it just depends on for me, sometimes it used to be a battle of like letting the dark not take control. So letting the light. So how do you make sure that the depression doesn't take the driver's seat?
When you realize that it's not you. My favorite comedian is Bill Hicks. Second favorite, sorry. And Bill Hicks had this beautiful minute-long thing where he's like, life is like a ride in an amusement park, and it's got thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored. At the end of that, he said, it's all just a ride. And you realize that it's a choice. Everything is a choice between fear and love. All my depression, all my anxiety, it comes out of fear. And if that's not me, and I do believe in what he says, that this is binary, it's fear or love. Even for me, most anger is born of fear. So if life is fear and love, and if depression is a huge part of me, but it's not me, and that's the fear, then I know what I am, right? So when I realize, once you make that distinction, that all my anxiety, all my depression, all my darkness, that's the fear. I'm the love, then you know that fear is going to take over sometimes when things get tough or tragedy strikes. But you've separated that from you. When I made that distinction and I realized that's part of me, but it's not me, I knew it's never going to have the power that it had. When I was a kid and I was on my own, and before I spoke to, I had a shrink when I told you when I was 32, I went to somebody. And that's when I realized I had a very simple question. I said, I've been carrying all this guilt around ever since I was a kid, and I just want to know where it comes from. And that's when she explained fear of abandonment to me and all of these things. And if I had the ability when I was younger to talk to someone like her, mm-hmm. I would have realized that the depression is it's part of me, but it's not me. What really got me down when I was younger was that I thought that's who I was. I thought that the darkness, the fear, the depression, that's who I was.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. Like, it's my best friend.
But it's not you. It doesn't define you.
Yeah. And I talk to it all the time. I have these internal, they're not really conversations, but thoughts. A lot of thoughts. And he or she is very dark and says some weird stuff sometimes. And I'm like, hey, I never looked at it like that. And I hammer that out on my typewriter. And 10 minutes later, I got a poem. And I'm like, hey, thanks, buddy. I would have never come up with that on my own, you know? And that's what I mean, but I would never give that to anybody. And if that cost me, you know, sadness and difficulty in the earlier part of my life, so be it.
So abandonment was your biggest fear, right? What's your, or was it not maybe, but fear of abandonment, but
one of them, yeah, subconsciously, yeah, for a long time.
But it's not now?
No, it's not that, it's that I've understood it.
You've understood it?
Yeah.
But you don't have the fear of abandonment now.
No, but sometimes I don't know. I mean, I'm an evolving person. Sometimes maybe you don't have that fear of abandonment anymore because you're overcompensating and you're being hyper independent. Like, you know, you kind of, maybe you put too many, I don't know. It's hard to diagnose myself today. It's easy to diagnose myself yesterday.
So in 10 years we diagnose you?
Yeah. Ask me in 10 years. Yeah.
Do you have any other fears now?
Failure to me is, it's very different now than when I was younger. Failure to me is being inauthentic.
Inauthentic?
Yeah. To myself. Okay. I'll be very candid. There are certain financial opportunities that present themselves in the stock market, in business, in advertising. Tomorrow, if I decide I'm going to pursue any of those avenues, financially, I'll be set for the rest of my life. I'll never have to worry about, you know, when the next payment's coming in or what the next job is going to be. But that's not me.
Are they unethical choices?
No, it's inauthentic. Because
you'd rather be struggling a bit than have it easier?
It's not struggling. I live well, and I'm very fortunate. But I am worried. I'm anxious about, you know, because you don't have a salary, you don't have right?
So more the reason to make those moves so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, but there are moves that I can make financially or with work, professionally, that will take that anxiety away.
Yeah.
But then I'll be so far removed from myself that what's the point? You know, to me, that's failure. If I give up on what I feel I should be doing, which is writing, creating things, making films, telling stories, if I give up on that to be comfortable.
But wouldn't those things, being comfortable here, enable you more time to be doing those things?
No, I don't think so. I think when I left advertising, when I was 24, a couple of people very, very close to me in the family said, don't leave now. You're doing so well. You just won all these awards and blah, blah, blah. Stick around for a few years and then go. Next thing you know, I'd be on a ridiculous salary at age maybe 27, 28. And I'd say, I want to get a Porsche. I want to live here. I want to wear this watch. I want to wear those clothes. And then now I've got this lifestyle that I have to keep up, right? And now I can't go to be the guy on the bottom of the call sheet.
Yeah.
Right?
Because how can you be turning up in a Ferrari or a Porsche? Yeah.
No, it's not even that. It's that, like, my lifestyle is
You're
now
used
here.
to the standard.
Yeah. My first year in production, when I set up, I made $2,000. The year.
The year?
The year.
What'd you live off of? Like...
Savings. Savings and charity. No, I mean, really, it was... So how am I going to make that jump if I'm making, you know, a $6-figure dollar salary in an ad agency as a creative director one day?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's unheard of. It's just, it's harder to do.
Yeah, it's a big mountain to fall down.
Yeah, it is. And from a writing perspective, I think it was Bukowski that said this. People who write often find that they write crap their whole youth. They're always writing, or they're trying stuff, or they have a, you know, love-hate relationship with writing. And then suddenly they hit like 36, 37, 38, and everything just comes out. And that's what happened to me. So I think I had this incubation period of fiddling around with a production house and doing commercials and making a movie and trying to write stuff. And then suddenly at 38, I never really wrote poetry. Excuse me, except once when I was in 8th grade and in love. And then suddenly...
Roses are red, violets are blue.
Oh, my God, you don't even ask.
No, I want to hear what it was.
No, I remember the line.
I would like to know it.
I'll never tell you. I never wrote poetry. I never enjoyed reading poetry. And then suddenly at 37, when I went off on the bike trip, just before that, I'm writing poetry about all kinds of things. Nothing to do with love. It's like the one thing I don't write about. And it doesn't rhyme. It's very brash. And it's that guy talking. It's me talking to my best friend, and we're kind of trying to, find something together. And then suddenly I realized, like, shit, I think I just said something that nobody said before, or nobody said like that, And now I've got a poem out, and I don't know, maybe I've written 100 since then.
Why do you avoid writing about love?
Is
that so bad?
Sorry?
Is that so bad?
No, it's just I never believed any of them. You
don't believe in the writing, or you don't believe in love?
I didn't believe the writing.
Oh, but you
I
believe
didn't
in
believe
love.
the writing. Of course I believe in love.
Oh, I'm just checking.
Yeah,
Hey,
100%.
you're a dark individual. Now you're talking about this guy in the corner over there. I'm a bit nervous.
Dark individual.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like emotionally?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I totally believe in love.
Okay.
And I think...
What is love to you?
Understanding.
Love is understanding?
Yeah.
In your partner, or just...
I think I felt the most loved when I felt the most understood. And unfortunately, more often than not, the reverse is true. When I felt unloved, I felt that I wasn't understood, or that wasn't even... People weren't even trying to understand.
Talking of love and understanding, love. What would you love to do in the future? Like, what is your dream? What is your dream? Or dreams?
My dream is, before I die, I would like to have met all of me that there is to meet. I don't know, it's a bit cryptic, but...
So you'd like to have given it everything your all?
I would like to have discovered the depths of me. I know it sounds very conceited, but there's so much that I find every day that I surprise myself. Mm. And there's thoughts or sentiments or concepts that I didn't know existed. And I'm not borrowing them from anywhere. I don't even feel like they're coming from me. I feel like they're coming from a well. And I want to have worked my way down to the bottom of that well.
But don't you think that's an impossible task, especially as you said that you're evolving?
Oh, it's absolutely impossible.
Oh, okay.
But as a sentiment, that's what I would want.
Okay, so you have a fear of success, and you don't achieve as much as you should. So you've just made them. You said you had the fear.
I said failure.
Fear.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you said that.
You don't have a fear of success.
It's almost like we've talked before.
Once or twice, but you're setting a goal that is.
I'm setting an impossible goal, but it's not a goal that I'm setting myself up for. It's like what I'm trying to say.
You could have just said, "I want a boat, I want a plane, and my dream is to win the World Cup."
No, I just want to. I guess what I'm saying is I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but just do it better.
But who defines what's better?
Me.
Okay, what is better?
Today, I read a screenplay. And after reading that screenplay, I'm a better writer than I was yesterday. Maybe 0.0001%.
Okay.
But I'm a little bit better. And I define that. I feel like I'm more myself because I've absorbed what I liked in that screenplay and I've responded to and identified what I didn't like in that screenplay. So now tomorrow, when I'm working on the next page of my screenplay, subconsciously, that's guiding me a little bit better.
You said you're a bit of a jester.
Yeah.
When you're not being a dark person.
Yeah.
Give me a prank. Did you ever prank anyone, actually? Have you done pranks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Tell me a funny...
I can't. No, I can't.
You can't tell me the love poem. You can't tell me a prank. It's too late to find
Okay, I'll tell you the love poem.
You tell me the love poem.
I'll tell you the line.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
8 years old, dude. It was 30 years ago.
No, I was 12. I think the poem ended with...
No, not ended with. Let's...
Oh, I don't remember the whole thing. I just remember the last line, and it's so bad that that's all you need.
Tell me.
You
Look into my... No.
Huh?
Look me in the eyes.
No, absolutely not. The poem ended with, you redefine the word divine.
Divine?
Yeah.
Give me one of your funniest memories.
A funny moment, I don't know. I think I used to love pranking my grandfather.
The PhD writer?
The PhD writer.
Okay, that you looked up to so much.
Oh, so much. Everybody made fun of him in the family. And I think that's where I got a lot of my writing hang-ups from. But I used to tease him a lot.
Writing hang-ups?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to tease him a lot. And he was, by this time, just to give you context, he was already almost in his 90s, okay? And, I think it was like 20 something.
You
early
dog
20s.
son of a bitch, pranking a 90-year-old man.
Oh, all the time. Like it was because he kind of asked for it. When he speaks, everything around must be quiet, and like if you...
Because he's 90 years old.
Right. No, but he's always been like this, apparently,
okay.
right? And then if he's talking and someone else in the next room is saying something, he'll do this. With his fingertip, yeah. So he would give people a hard time. He was very nice to me.
Mm.
But he would give people a hard time. And I remember my favorite pranks were we used to tease him by feeding his ego. He had a gigantic ego.
Okay. How's that a prank? That's like...
Because everyone was in on the joke except him. We'd have these family reunions. There's 10 of us and one of him. And we went to the Taj Mahal. He didn't want to come that day. We flew down, did a tour, came back. And we were all talking, and he wanted to be involved in the conversation. So I remember one day I pretended that the guy at the book stand at the Taj Mahal had read his book.
You told him that?
It gets worse.
He was selling the book as well.
So he said, what's the guy's name? And I said, he wanted your autograph. Can you sign a book for him? And everyone around cracking up. My grandfather suddenly, he looked 20 years younger, like in a second. And this led somewhere. And everyone knew that I'm a storyteller too, right? So I'm taking him somewhere and no one knows where I'm taking him. And I convinced him that the guy at the bookstore, he's like, who do I make out the dedication to? He said, I gave him a name. And I said, it's not for him, it's for his wife. And he's like, okay, what's his wife's name? And I said, Rosemary. Rosemary. And he's like, that's a beautiful name. The guy selling tourist books in Agra, his wife's name is Rosemary. I'm like, yeah. He's Indian, but she's Irish. And he's like, oh. And I was like, she goes by her maiden name. So what do I write as the maiden name? What's her full name? And I said, her last name is Marlowe, like Christopher Marlowe. And if you put those two names together in Hindi.
Rosemary Marlowe.
It's very, very rude.
Rosemary Marlowe. You're not going to tell us what it means. I'm going to have to go and Google this.
Yeah, you'll have to Google it. But I remember the whole family had been waiting patiently to figure out where the hell I'm taking this poor old man. And then suddenly he says the name out loud. And he writes it out. And 10 people just fall over on the floor. And my grandfather has no idea What's so funny? And somewhere is still a copy of that book that poor man dedicated to. Yeah. And yeah, he deserved much better than me, but that's the grandson he got.
Pick up one of these cans, please. Anyone at random.
Okay, hold on.
Just for branding purposes, Is there a card inside?
Oh. Yes, there's a card inside.
Okay. This is a number.
Am I allowed to look at it?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
You can dial this number for a nice massage later. I joke.
Oh, I thought it was actual.
Read out the... Read. And answer. I don't know what it is.
Talk about an embarrassing story about yourself or someone you know. And you have to guess if it happened to me or somebody else.
Okay.
I was in Italy on a honeymoon with my wife, new wife, obviously. And I had asked a friend, a trusted friend, where I should go in Italy.
Okay.
And my friend gave me the name of a tourist destination.
Okay.
That I didn't know turned out to be a very, very bad word in Italian. And instead of asking a normal person where this landmark was, I went and asked a female police officer in Rome.
What was the place?
It didn't exist.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah. A friend of mine asked me, he's like, oh, you've been to Italy, you love Rome.
You did this to somebody.
Yeah, of course I did it to
Of course
somebody.
you did this to somebody. Son of a...
So
Who'd you do it to?
Manu. Not that one, a friend of mine from high school, college. He's like, hey, you've been to Italy, you like it there? I'm taking, yeah. No. He's like, I said, where are you going? He's like, gave me a list. And I was like, oh, don't go to Fontana di Trevi. He's like, oh, it's supposed to be really nice. I'm like, no, everyone goes there. There's another one, only the Italians know where it is. Go to Trevi and ask anybody there, where's Fontana di Cazzo? And he calls me screaming after 2 weeks. And he's like, you son of a bitch. I asked a woman and it was a cop.
What's next for you?
Tomorrow's page. Every day I get up and terrify myself and I open up Final Draft or I sit in front of the typewriter and I try to make something. And it's terrifying when I'm about to do it. It's thrilling when I'm in the middle of it, and it's very fulfilling when I'm done.
Yeah, but that's your daily plan from day to day. That's what you're going to do tomorrow. You're going to wake up, you're going to write. But what's your next goal? Like, what's your next project? What are you aiming towards? Because those words on a page have to accumulate to get somewhere. So what is it you're trying to get to?
I mean, this specific one is a feature film that I'm working on. It's called Born Twice. It's set in an orphanage in India. But I'm trying to start. I've always been a big picture person. And I'm trying to start just thinking about my next footstep. And tomorrow's footstep is tomorrow's page. If I think about it like I have to finish the script, it's daunting for me. But if I think about it like, okay, I wrote 2 pages today and I revised a really bad one. Tomorrow, I'm going to revise what probably was not a great page today and then write 2 more or write another one. If I think about it like that and I break it down like that, then it's much less daunting.
But writing about the orphanage, isn't that not going to be very close to home and quite daunting? And
see what you did there. Yeah, it is. But I'm having a lot of fun doing it because, I mean, this might change. It might never make its way into the film. But I kind of accidentally wrote myself into the movie. Like the 9-year-old version of me or 7-year-old version of me.
Revisiting.
Yeah, the film's about tired of seeing one baby after another get adopted. An unwanted 12-year-old boy stuck in an orphanage will do whatever it takes to find a family. Now, I don't know what it's like to live in an orphanage because I was way too young to remember. I was 6 months old when I was adopted, maybe less. But I know what it's like to feel guilty, and I know what it's like to go back there. So when I write from the perspective of this kid, Neel, 12-year-old, 9-year-old Neel. Then suddenly it becomes interesting for me because I can sink my teeth into that. And the other thing is, my main character is a kid who's been stuck in the orphanage his whole life and never got adopted. But the relationship that he has with another person in the orphanage is based on the relationship I have with my sister, who I'm very, very close to. And so, like, yeah, it's close to home, but I don't know what it's like to be an orphan. I'm very fortunate, right?
Yeah, because would they have that bond in an orphanage? Wouldn't it be like almost like...
That's the whole point.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's competition in there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, she's not. For specific reasons, not very nice. So she's got a cleft palate. And India's a very superstitious country. The other kids think she's cursed.
Because of cleft palate?
Yeah.
Is that a really thing? That's a...
Oh, yeah. I did a documentary years ago with Emirates Airline Foundation. And they were saying they sponsor a hospital ship in Bangladesh that just goes up and down river fixing cleft palates because the superstition and the
stigma,
that's the right word, is so strong that even though it's purely aesthetic, these people will never live a normal life. They'll never have normal relationships. They'll never get hired for normal jobs. Where you fix that and you change the course of the rest of their life. And it's not, usually depends on how severe it is, but it's usually not that serious a fix.
But it can also be very difficult for breathing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like sometimes it's a cleft lip, sometimes it's a cleft palate, but the stigma, as with many things in life, it's the stigma of it is worse than the actual issue itself. Like the stigma of someone living with HIV, right? Is sometimes it's harder to live with the stigma these days than the disease.
What piece of advice would you give to anyone trying to get over their fears, stigma?
Everybody says, present company included, that they want to do something. For me, it was I want to write, or I want to fill in. I want to feel less sad. I want to understand where my guilt is coming from. I want to whatever. But very few people are willing to do the work that it takes. And this, I think, is my biggest weakness, is my lack of consistency from when I was growing up. I think consistency is absolutely the key. Whether it's consistently going to get help, talk to a shrink, talk to a professional. Whether it's consistently, whether or not you're terrified of writing, write that page or write for that hour or 2 hours every day.
Yeah.
I would say, first, find what you want to work towards, whatever that big goal is, but then break it down into day-sized chunks. Like, what can I do tomorrow or today, if it's the morning? What can I do today that's going to get me closer to there? Rather, because what I had when I was younger, I had very grand, abstract goals for myself. I want to be this, I want to be that, but okay, how am I going to do that? I want to write a movie, and I want to write a great movie. I'm not happy with it. Average. I want to write a brilliant movie. How do I write a brilliant movie? If I sit and think about, my movie has to be brilliant, I'll never write anything. But okay, I want to write a brilliant movie, but whatever, come what may, tomorrow I'm going to write something, right? That to me is the key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. That's it.